channel. If you are new here, my name is Regan Morgan and I just finished my first year of medical school. So today I'm going to be doing a Q&A and I ask the questions on my Instagram, which I will link below if you would like to follow me on there. And yeah, we can jump into them now. The first question says, what is some advice or info that you wish you knew for the application process? This is a really good question. I think the application process can be very stressful and a very long process. So you need to explain that to your friends and family members. And I know some people did not like to repeatedly be asked about their cycle. It stressed them out, it upset them. And just know when your friends and family ask, have you gotten any interviews, or have you heard back from a school that they're coming from a good place? But if that does bother you, you can always sit down and tell them, like, this is a really long and stressful process, it's out of my hands type of thing. And they should be understanding of that. Also, I think that the application process involves a lot of essay writing, and I did not know that. Like, I had heard about secondary essays, but these essays take a lot out of you emotionally. There's always people joking that they're like trauma dumping in their essays to this school where you don't know anyone, but it is a very emotionally charged process. You want to show this school what type of person you are and what experiences you've had that have led you to this place and that would make you a good applicant at their school. So just plan for that, like set aside time to write all of those essays. Don't think that you can write 30 essays in one day. You should spread them out a little bit. I know some people pre-write essays, which honestly I did not really do, but that would have been a good idea because there were some that I did not turn around quickly. And the golden rule for turnaround time is about 2 weeks after you get the essays. You would want to have those back to the school. But obviously the faster you get your essays back to the school, that increases your chance of getting an interview. And the sooner you interview, the higher chance you have of getting a seat in that school. So yes, I wish I knew that before applying. Also, just give yourself grace during this process. A lot of it is not in your hands once you turn in those applications. And even getting to a spot where you are applying to medical school, where you have taken your MCAT, you have gotten all these letters of recommendation and done all of this stuff to get to this point, do not be hard on yourself. This process is a lot of rejection. Sometimes it's rejection email after rejection email. And I was someone that did not get interviews until late in the application cycle. And I was doing a master's program at the time, and I remember, having an exam at 1 p.m. that day, and that morning getting rejected from 2 schools that I really wanted to go to. And you literally just need to learn how to have a thick skin and let that roll off of your back. You will end up where you belong. And it is not personal. These schools are looking for a mold essentially that is going to fit into their school. And sometimes, like, looking at someone on paper or during an interview, that does not show them your full personality. So do not take it personally. Just know that a school will give you a chance when it is your time. And if you have any friends in the application process too, learn how to support each other without overstepping boundaries. And my rule of thumb is if my friends want to tell me something, they will. I'm not going to ask them repeatedly if they have gotten interviews or how they're doing in the application cycle. Instead, it's better to ask them, how are you doing? Like, how are you feeling? Open-ended questions to see if they want to talk more about it. But it is a very stressful time. I don't know what else to say other than just try your best to navigate it. Understand that many people have to apply multiple times to get accepted to a school, and don't compare yourself to others. You are on your own journey, you are your own applicant, and you have a lot to offer. So own that and try your best to portray that in essays. Next question is, what is your favorite specialty so far? This is a tough one to say because I have not started rotations yet. My school doesn't start rotations until 3rd and 4th year. I have shadowed in the ER and a dermatologist, so I have a little bit of experience, but there are a lot of fields that I'm interested in that I have little to no experience in. And this year I really am leaning towards anesthesiology. I like the pharmacology behind anesthesiology. I like the idea of being in the OR but not necessarily doing surgery. I like the shorter residency time. I think you can go a lot of different routes with anesthesia too, which I like, but who knows if I will end up there. I definitely will be doing that as an elective rotation. Some other things that I have been interested in, I've always loved emergency medicine, but I don't know if that is the type of lifestyle that I want in the future. So that's always something to think about, and I really didn't think about that a lot as a pre-med. But once you get into medical school, you start to think about things like that. I'm not gonna choose something that I don't think will fit into the lifestyle that I want, but I do love emergency medicine, so if I go on rotations and the lifestyle doesn't bother me, then I could see myself going that route as well. I am interested in radiology. I don't know much about it, but like learning in lectures, I love radiology, which is funny because I'm not a very visual learner, but there's something about just seeing like a concrete image and being able to say like, this is the pathology. I really like that. I'm into like puzzles and problem solving. So that's something I'm thinking about as well. And I'm really not closed off to anything. How did you study for the MCAT? The MCAT is a beast of an exam. I studied for 10 months, which wasn't necessarily by choice, but I took it during COVID times. And my exam got pushed back 4 months, I believe, and like canceled multiple times. So I studied more than I expected, but I am glad that I did. The main thing I recommend is definitely do UWorld questions. My scores went up so much after doing UWorld questions, doing like 40 question blocks, and review every single question that you do, whether that is a practice exam, UWorld, whatever you're doing, Jack Weston for cars, review every single question, read every explanation. If you guessed on something and got it right, read the explanation and dive deeper into why you didn't know the right answer. Just because you guessed and got it right does not mean that you will on the exam. So I really recommend diving deep into those practice questions and practice exams. And outside of that, I initially read Kaplan books. I'm not much of a reader, so that was not great for me, honestly. And I did the Kaplan course, which also was not great for my learning style. So I kind of moved outside of that and was doing UWorld questions, Jack Weston for cars almost daily. I did Anki, I did the Miles Down deck, and I mostly did that for psych. And I also listened to Dr. Gray's podcast, the MCAT podcast. That helped a lot with psych, and I could go work out or go on a walk while I was listening to that, which was great. And then I got the opportunity to work with Blueprint later in my MCAT prep, and I really wish I would have started with their course. It was better suited for me. Their videos were more engaging for me. I didn't use the books a lot at that point because I was within a few months of my test date, but I did use a lot of their online modules, and I really liked that. Take as many practice exams as you can and do the full length 8 hours. Get up and start at 8 a.m. if you're planning on taking your test at 8 a.m. Eat whatever you're going to eat on test day for breakfast that day. Basically treat the whole day as test day. Don't bring your phone out during breaks. Don't call your friends or call your mom. You need to act like you're taking the test every single time, especially with tests like these. You may not even know that you have testing anxiety. I think we all have a degree of testing anxiety, and some of us have it way worse than others, and you need to be aware of how that test day is going to be for you. So eating the same foods, making sure you're not sick or hungry during the first portion of the exam, sleeping enough, all of that stuff matters. So just creating the test day over and over and over again, taking all of the practice exams that you can. I think I took 9 or 10 during my prep, and I went through with a fine-tooth comb every single one of them that I took. I had an Excel sheet of questions that I either missed or that I guessed on and got right but did not know the answer, and going through and reviewing all of that stuff. And in the Excel sheet I would write why I got it wrong. If I needed to go review that again, I would put like an outside resource, like maybe I need to watch a video on that or go to the Blueprint website and dive deeper into this biology topic, whatever it may be. So you really just need to be disciplined with yourself during the prep and try to create the test day situation over and over again so you feel more comfortable going into test day. And also take care of your mental and emotional health. It is a long process. It is draining. It's hard. It can be isolating at times. I think that's the first time for a lot of pre-med students that you are studying to that extent by yourself, like under your own guidance. And there are courses you can take if you really struggle to self-study or to do an online self-paced course. I do recommend getting like a tutor, or there are courses that are more guided. So you need to know your learning style as well and choose what is best for you, but understand that it is temporary. Your hard work will pay off and you will see improvement if you stick with it every day and adjust to your learning style and just keep at it. I got a 485 on my MCAT. Any advice for improvement? So when I took my first diagnostic test, I also got a 486 on it, which I remember being very discouraged by that. But honestly, that means there is a large room for improvement, and it makes it easier to start. Like when you are scoring in that range, you need to start with content and filling in content gaps. So a good place to do that is with MCAT books, and maybe if you self-study the first time and it didn't work out, maybe you look into getting a prep course. If you took a prep course and it didn't work out, do not do the same thing over and over. You need to adjust your study patterns and habits. And I tell everyone that's taking the MCAT, do not walk in on test day if you have not taken a full-length exam yet, or if you have taken full-length exams and are nowhere near your goal score. That is the best predictor, is just taking those exams over and over again. And I was not willing to sit for my MCAT until I got my goal score and was scoring in that range at least 2 to 3 times. And that also gives you confidence going in, knowing like, okay, I've done this before, I can do it again. I think there's this misconception that everyone should be able to take their MCAT after 3 months of studying, and that is not true. I took mine after 10 months of studying. So many people take it multiple times. Do not feel discouraged if it takes you longer to study. Some people, that's just how it is. I was also taking classes at the time. Everyone's situation is different. If you are working full-time or taking full-time courses, I think a 2 or 3 month study period time is simply not enough. Like, there are people that are coming in and taking that test that have studied full-time, only doing that for 3 months. So keep that in mind and don't be too hard on yourself. Just make adjustments to improve, try different methods. If you need help, reach out for help. There also are a lot of great online like support type of groups, or you can go on Reddit or Student Doctor Network. I know it can be toxic at times, but there is so much great information and people willing to help and offer advice out there. So reach out if you're lost and if you need help, and just stick at it. You will see your score increase. My score very slowly creeped up to 500s, and once I broke the 500 range, I started doing UWorld, and that is where I saw the most improvement. And I realized that I need to do more practice questions and practice exams, because that's personally how I learn. Find your learning style, stick with it. Treat this as a full-time job if you can. If you're doing other things, extend your study time. Do it for 6 months, do it for 10 months, however long you need to do it until you are hitting that goal score. And just remain disciplined and just trust the process. If you put the work in, it will pay off and it will be worth it. Do you have a workout routine? I have not been good about having a set workout routine in med school. My school changes the schedule every single week and every day, it seems like, so no day is the same, and that is a little bit stressful for me because I am a very routine person and I like to go to the gym at the same time every day, and I kind of had to beat that out of my head. Like, I never used to work out in the afternoon. If I needed to lift in the afternoon, it was not happening. And I realized second semester, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna have to break that. Like, that is ridiculous to have that thought that I'm never gonna work out in the afternoon. Yes, I don't like it, but that's what worked most of the time this past semester for me. I do prefer to work out in the mornings, but if I have an 8 a.m. class and I have a commute to school, that leaves me getting up at like 5 a.m. or even earlier. And it's just a whole production. If I go straight from the gym to school, then I might not get to eat for however long, or just have a protein shake or something. So it varies by day. I do still enjoy lifting, but most weeks I would lift 2 to 4 times, if that. Take walks when I can. Sometimes I go do cardio and just walk on the treadmill, doing an incline walk while reading notes. Just trying to get movement in where I can, and I would like to get into a more consistent routine this upcoming year, and that might mean getting up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. to go lift every single day like I enjoy doing, but we will see. How is your visual snow? For those of you who don't know, I had a head and neck injury in 2019. Was working out at a gym and a piece of metal, like a metal bar, fell on my head and hit me like this and knocked my neck back in that way. And I thought I had a concussion initially. I didn't lose consciousness, I was fine. And then I started having really bad chronic migraines after that for months. Like, there were days I could not get out of bed. My vision was super messed up for a long time. I had neurological symptoms, numbness, tingling, and I just felt in a daze for months, and it was awful. And I ended up having a C1, C2 subluxation from whiplash. The neck injury caused a lot of other issues, and it's hard to say what led to what and what's from the concussion, what's from the neck injury. I don't really know, but I had vision problems after the injury. I had no idea what it was for a very long time, and I also had occipital neuralgia, which was very painful, like right at the base of my skull. And then chronic migraines on top of that, and I just was in pain all the time. And my vision, the way I would describe it is like television static, but all the time, and it's worse when I look at lighter backgrounds. So like the sky is always bad. Looking at a white piece of paper, I just see like flickering almost, and then sometimes I'll have like dots that like track down my visual field like that. It's so weird. I can't believe this happened to me and that my vision is like this, but it is visual snow. I was diagnosed by a neuro-ophthalmologist. And this is a very new discovery, and they have linked it back to head injuries and whiplash, and they don't know exactly what causes it. It is something with your visual cortex. They don't have any set cures for it. There are some medication that help it, but I am not on anything for it at this time. I kind of just live with it, and it bothered me so much at first. Like, it drove me absolutely insane. And when you are already having migraines and then you just have this constant flickering in your visual field, it is awful. It would make me nauseous, dizzy. It truly was awful. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like your eyes never calming down, and it doesn't obstruct your visual field at all. Like, I still see the same things that I would see before, but it's just like a static. Like, there's constant movement, even if nothing is moving, which is different, but I think I just adjusted to it. It really does not bother me that much anymore. I notice it and I try to ignore it because there is nothing I can do about it. For some people it goes away, but for most people it doesn't go away, and that's just how it is now. So I've come to accept it. It doesn't really restrict me in any way. I will say that when I get migraines and I have the visual snow going on, it causes the migraines to be worse. Like, I just want to lay down and not open my eyes and be in a quiet, dark room. But other than that, I just notice it in like really bright settings, and I've learned to ignore it. I think when you live with something for so long, it just becomes your new normal. If you're struggling with visual snow, you should go to a neuro-ophthalmologist and get a diagnosis. There are things that can be done to try to make it better, and that is up to you if you want to go down that route or if you just want to try to adjust to it. But it is very hard at first. I think for me, the hardest thing was realizing like I have to deal with this the rest of my life and there's nothing I can do about it. It is out of my control. It does get better if you are going through it. I'm sorry. I wish there was more that could be done, and I do hope there's more research that comes out about it because I think it is underdiagnosed. I think a lot of people don't know what it is. I still have a lot of neurologists and doctors that have no idea what I'm talking about because this is such a new discovery. But you are not alone. It is very hard. Do not be hard on yourself. Give yourself grace, give yourself time, and just try your best to adjust to it. How long did it take you to finish your personal statement? I think it took me 4 to 6 weeks to fully finish my personal statement. So I took my MCAT in July of 2020, I believe, and then I turned my applications in a little bit late, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but for me, I was going into a master's program. My MCAT had been pushed back. A lot of people's MCATs had been pushed back, so that year was a little bit different. But I did need to get my personal statement done quickly. If you have time, I would recommend starting it even in like January of the year you want to apply and coming back to it. You shouldn't feel like you have to write it in one sitting. It is something that like comes about, and just jot down ideas as you have them. Focus on stories that relate to why you want to be a doctor and use the show and don't tell method. Show situations that led you to medicine or that show your passion and commitment to this field. And I will also say with personal statements, I think people go a little crazy nowadays with getting edits. And I do think it's good to have people read over your personal statement. But I will say, do not ask anyone to edit your personal statement if you do not like their writing style or if you do not like how they portray their stories. I think that's so important. I read Dr. Gray's book to get ideas, and that was good. And I only had 3 people, I think, read and edit my personal statement, and that was like plenty for me. I think when you have too many people edit it, it's not your story anymore. It feels unnatural. If you are in school or you're working, it might take you a little bit longer. Know when to be done with it. It's never going to be 100% perfect, but when you feel like you have a good personal statement that portrays your story, that is when you should be done. And I think that can vary between everyone. For someone, it might take them 2 weeks, and for someone else, they might have been working on it for a year. How did you study during first year? This changed so much throughout my first year. I think everyone is different too. I am not a group studier at all. I study alone. I might go to a coffee shop with friends or study in a study room with friends, but we do our work independently. That's just how I learn better. I am not a live lecture type of girl either. I like to watch recorded lectures, and sometimes I don't watch the lectures at all. So I go through our lecture slides, and we do in-house exams, so I think that's important too, depending on the school you're going to. If you're doing board-style exams, you should do more practice questions from UWorld and Amboss or wherever else you can get your questions. But if your professors are writing your exams, definitely go over their material multiple times. I do 2 passes at least of every lecture if I can, and focus on how that professor is going to ask questions, do any practice questions that they have. So that's where I start, and then I kind of fill in gaps from there. I'm a big fan of Sketchy Micro and Sketchy Farm, and then doing the corresponding Anki cards for that, using Anking and just unsuspending the cards as I need them. I also like Pathoma, and our school provides that for us, so we use Pathoma, and I just use the book. Sometimes I'll watch the videos if I need more help. And then I also like the first aid book, and I use Pathoma and first aid usually while I'm reviewing before an exam, and just use it for reference essentially. And like if there's a disease that I want to cover more, just look it up in both books, get a better picture of it. And I also recently got Amboss, and I'm a big fan, especially for anything histology related. I think it's great. It has everything you need. It's like a library. I think their questions are great as well. So I've been using that too. I don't do a ton of practice questions before exams, which is surprising because for my MCAT studying, I did a lot of practice questions. But I think for in-house exams, like I do better if I prioritize the material given by our professors. So that's an interesting mix. We'll see if that changes when I start board studying, because I feel like it might. But for first year, that's just what worked best for me. And listen to other students too, listen to the second years. They'll have good advice on what worked for them. And like, do understand that everyone studies differently. If everyone uses Sketchy and you hate Sketchy and you've tried it, then don't use Sketchy. Same thing with Anki. Some people are so committed to Anki and that is all that they do all day, every day, and it works for them, and that's great. If that does not work for you, do not force yourself to do it. You could really like mess up one exam by just picking one strategy and sticking with it when you know that that's not what works for you. So keep that in mind, and I think it's a learning process. First year is hard and you're constantly making adjustments, but you will find what works best for you. And I think it depends on each block too. Like I studied differently in neuro than I did for heme limp or for derm. So just find what works best, make adjustments along the way, and you will get the hang of it. You will find what works for you. It's overwhelming at first. I promise it gets better, and you start to realize what will work for you and what is a waste of your time. Those are all of the questions that I have to answer today. If you have any more questions, you can leave them below in the comment section, and I will try my best to answer them for you. And if you would like to see more videos, please subscribe to my channel below. It is free and it will let you know when I upload more videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon.